Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Just Finance Foundation proudly sponsors Teachers Talk Radio for Talk Money Week. Join us from Saturday the 4th of November for a week of incredible guests and thought-provoking discussions on how teachers can talk about money in the classroom. Tune in, be inspired, and empower the future generation. Teachers Talk Radio, sponsored by Just Finance Foundation, helping children manage money wisely. Visit our website for the schedule and details, justfinancefoundation.org.uk.
Good morning and thank you, Lucy. Yes, starting on Monday, it is Talk Money Week. So we're getting ahead of the game here on Saturday, the 4th of November. And if you don't know what Talk Money Week is, it's a week which is an opportunity for everyone to get involved with events and activities across the UK, which help people have more open conversations about their money, from pocket money to pensions. But also financial education and talking about money is not just for a week. And hopefully our 4 shows this week will help to continue these conversations all year round. So whether you're going back to work on Monday, whether you're in the second week of half term 2, whether you're permanently on half term, we encourage you really to use this week as an opportunity to talk about any aspect of money. And it's really important because as we recover from COVID and the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic, and also with the current cost of living pressures, it's more important than ever that we get support for money worries. And research shows that people who talk about money make better and less risky financial decisions. They have stronger personal relationships. They help their children form good lifetime money habits, and they feel less stressed or anxious and more in control. And so building money conversations into our everyday lives also helps us to build financial confidence and resilience to face whatever the future throws at us. And this year, we are asking you, our Teachers Talk Radio listeners, and in fact, everybody across the United Kingdom, to do one thing that can help to improve your financial well-being and make a noise about it and inspire others to do the same. It doesn't have to be huge. It could be as simple as checking the address on your pension. And teachers, a lot of teachers don't check their pensions. So that could be one thing you can do. It might be having a conversation with your form group about pocket money or about spending. So what we want you, the wonderful Teachers Talk Radio audience, to do is decide on the one thing you're going to do to talk money this week. Tell everyone about it and encourage other people to do the same. And hopefully, to give you some ideas, we've got 2 fantastic guests. So our first guest that we're going to hear from is Craig DeVos. Craig is a program manager at GamCare, and GamCare delivers interactive workshops directly to young people, providing them with facts about gambling and gaming in an open and non-judgmental way. Our second guest is Hayley Coyne. Hayley is a financial education expert from the Just Finance Foundation, and she brings her knowledge and experience of working within the education sector to deliver financial education programs that support schools across the UK. Our guests could introduce themselves now. Anything else they want to add? Craig, if we start with you. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning, Tom. Good morning, everybody. As Tom said, I work for GamCare. We're the leading provider of information, advice and support to anyone experiencing gambling harms. And we're currently delivering the Young People's Gambling Harm Prevention Programme. So we go into schools and other youth settings. We deliver workshops directly to young people. And we deliver training to parents and professionals as well.
Excellent. And Hayley, if you could introduce yourself as well.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Craig. So, as you've already said, my name's Hayley Coyne. I'm the Financial Education Team Lead for the Lifesavers Programme, and that's delivered by the Just Finance Foundation. And JFF is a national charity. We're dedicated to improving financial education in the UK. So the Lifesavers Initiative provides a free financial education programme. It's available for primary, SEN and alternative provision schools across the UK.
I'm not sure if it's just... Go on, carry on.
Sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm not... Lucy, to me, Hayley's a little bit muffled. I don't know about you.
She is. I was just going to actually message to say, Hayley, if you can adjust your sound slightly, or maybe move so that your microphone's not covered.
Our first conversation's with Craig, so we'll give Hayley 10 minutes just to see if she can do anything on that one. So today's show is about loot boxes and skin betting. And I hadn't heard of these terms, but I did a bit of reading around them and I realised, oh, hang on a second, I know exactly what these things are. So for those who are wondering, what on earth are loot boxes and what is skin betting? Craig, what are these things?
Yeah, they do definitely sound like strange things, and they weren't something that I had come across until I started in this role. So for those of you who are wondering, loot boxes are in-game mechanics found in video games or online games, game apps, things like that. They come in a variety of forms. So it could look like a sort of traditional box. It could look like a treasure chest, a crate, and also packs. So if you know anyone who plays the popular game FIFA, you'll know that there's the Ultimate Team packs that you can open. So that would be a form of a loot box as well. Some even come in the form of spinning wheels or slot machines. So they're not even attempting to hide the link to gambling there. Now you can access loot boxes through gameplay. So you could play the game over and over, get the in-game currency, then you can go into the shop in the game and purchase or open your loot boxes there. Or you can purchase in-game currency. So you can buy, spend different amounts and get different amounts of currency, and that will allow you to access and open loot boxes quicker. A lot of the time, a parent's card is going to be attached to the family Xbox or PlayStation account. So often they're unaware this is happening until the bill comes in at the end of the month. And we have a number of young people that come through our support service who have spent thousands of pounds, and it's not found out until, the bill comes in and then the parents realise what's happened. The key thing to remember with loot boxes is that the items you receive are randomised. So the player is essentially risking something of value on the outcome of something involving chance. And as you can imagine, that's effectively the definition of gambling itself. And then skins, when we talk about skins betting, that is, so the things that you get in the loot box could be part of a costume, it could be a weapon, it could be anything that makes your character look better. So the cosmetic value, they're generally only cosmetic in value. However, some websites you can go on taking your skins and you can sell them, exchange them for real world money. You can also, which is probably most worrying, you can exchange them for essentially virtual chips that you can go and gamble on unregulated gambling sites, which are very difficult. When one shuts down, another one pops up very quickly. So that is quite concerning to us.
Yeah, definitely. Once you actually explain what these terms actually mean, certainly for people with young children or people who teach, say, Key Stage 3, maybe Key Stage 4, like I do, then actually you start to realise actually the children we have in front of us are having these conversations. And the thing which sort of stands out to me is how much loot boxes in particular are popularised on YouTube by streamers, by content creators who will stream to large audiences of tens, hundreds of thousands of people about actually, oh my word, look, I've got Messi or someone like that. And then that encourages people to go and do the same. So as well as the things you've already mentioned, why else are these things a concern? Why should they be a concern for teachers and for the students in front of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the concerning thing about those influencers is they're actually paid a lot of the time by the gaming developers. So they're not actually spending their own money, whereas they're kind of encouraging young people to spend more and more and try and get that famous player or that that skin that is really sought after. And you know, peer pressure is a big thing to young people. It always has been. So when they're trying to get those, get the best looking characters, the rarest items, it really, you know, holds them in high esteem with their peers. What's also concerning is the game developers often borrow psychological techniques that are used in the gambling industry when they're developing these loot box mechanics. So if you've ever seen one opened, you might see some bright lights, you might hear some exciting noises and sounds and music. It's building anticipation to see what you're going to get. And it's very similar, if not the same, as you might see in say, a slot machine or a fruit machine or arcade machines. And I think as well, you're seeing, you know, there are some popular games that are more popular with older children and adults. But we've also seen recently, I'm sure you'll be aware of the popular game Roblox. There are casinos now, online casinos popping up where you can spend Robux, which is the in-game currency. And these websites, as you mentioned before, they're even targeting young influencers, paying them to encourage their followers to subscribe to these sites and then to gamble their Robux on them.
Mm. Yeah, that game in particular is talked about a lot by my younger students, those in year 7, those are, say, 11, 12 years old. And we can imagine what the financial impact of loot boxes and skin betting is. And you talked about sort of families and parents getting a bill at the end of a month and thinking, where on earth has this money all been spent? And I can think of a few stories that have hit the BBC and other media outlets about young children spending lots and lots of money. But what other impact does this have beyond, say, the financial impact?
Yeah, so in our workshop, we look at not only the financial impact, and that's kind of the obvious one with gambling and with gaming, right? But gambling and gaming also take away from the young person's development. So they might be spending too much time on these games or gambling. So, you know, they might not be hitting their deadlines. They might not be doing their homework. They might be missing activities with their friends that they would normally be going to. And, you know, we know that's good for their well-being. That kind of segues onto it affects their well-being as well when they're doing these things over and over. And in particular, they're going to try and hide this from their parents, right? They don't want them to find out that they've been spending this money. So they're going to do all they can to hide that. And that often leads to borrowing money from other people and getting into debt that way. And then I guess the other one really is the relationship. So when they do find out about their gaming and their gambling, that can put a tremendous amount of strain on the relationship. And gambling itself brings a lot of shame and stigma. And that's one thing that we really encourage people to do, is to talk about when these things happen and seek the support that you need. And that's what we're here for. These games are everywhere, you know, like that. There was a study back in 2020. It's probably there's probably more top games now, but there's nearly 60% of the top games on iPhone and Android were containing loot boxes, and most of those games, nearly 95%, were deemed suitable for children. So they're very easy to access. So it's really concerning. And the problem is a lot of teachers, a lot of parents don't know much about this, so they can't intervene when this is happening.
So just to quickly round up before we go back to Hayley, you said there's a lack of awareness from parents and from teachers about these things. Talk a bit more about your workshops and what else is being done to raise awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our workshops, we talk about what we would call digital harms, because we recognise there are a lot of gambling-like behaviours that young people are participating in. And then we know there's recent research out that young people who spend money on loot boxes are more than 10 times likely to gamble problematically than those who do not, sort of later in life. So we really want to come in and raise awareness. We're not here to say that gaming or gambling are good or bad. We're just wanting to provide the facts so that young people can make informed choices, and then the teachers and the parents and the carers that support the young people feel confident that they can have conversations with their children, and they know that there's support out there that they can access if they need it.
Thank you, Craig. If we could now go to Hayley, and Hayley's going to talk about risky situations, particularly with money. And I think one of the key soft skills we as teachers can develop with our students is how to manage risk, not just with money, but money is a good example of how we can do that. So, Hayley, why is it important to teach about risk and risky situations?
Well, hopefully you can hear me much better now.
We can hear you perfectly.
Oh, absolutely fabulous. I mean, thinking about the risk and why we should talk to our children, just referring back really to something that Craig said earlier on, it's around skin betting. So I really want to kind of draw on my own personal experiences here. So I recall a few years ago, my daughter, she'd built what she'd considered to be a magnificent inventory, and this was in the game Robux. You know, she'd got neon fly rides and avatars and things. She was so proud of this inventory she'd built. And then she was scammed out of every single item, and she was completely distraught. You know, she was crying, she was visually upset. But then using kind of that pester power, mummy, please, please. She begged me to buy her some more of these digital Robux so she could replace the items she's lost. Now, obviously, being the kind of soft touch kind of parent I am, and seeing how upset she was, I caved in and I purchased these Robux, these digital dollars. But thinking about it now, I was giving that money, and it was to kind of replace the losses that she'd had in the game. Now, I noticed over a period of weeks, really, this was becoming a recurrent theme. She'd build her inventory, she'd get scammed by another person within the game, she'd get upset, we'd go through the power of the pester where she'd beg me for more Robux, and I'd buy her more Robux. And that's where a light bulb moment come on for me, really. And it was realising that the gameplay, it was a very similar format to the adult gaming sites. Now, this all happened at a time before I'd taken this post for Just Finance Foundation. But it made me realise the importance of teaching children about the value of money from early age. You know, it sets them up for future learning and how to manage the money, but also knowing the choices that they have. And it allows them to develop a confidence with money, but also making the right decisions as well for their financial health and well-being. So I think that's why it's important to be having these conversations from a young age with children in school and at home as well. Now, we know from research that children form money habits from an early age. So a few years ago, the University of Cambridge, they conducted a piece of research, and it was in collaboration with the Money and Pension Service, and it was around the developmental stages in the early years. And they found that key money habits are formed by the age of 7, and children at this age are forming the core behaviours and habits. So if you think about what they're exposed to and they're playing these games, and I know children as young as 3 and 4 are playing these online games where you have to purchase digital dollars and things like that. It's quite a scary statistic when you think about what else they're exposed to at this age and how it will shape how they interact with money when they're older. So this is why really financial education is needed from a young age, because those crucial money skills, they need to be taught before this age in order for the child to develop financial capability in young people. Because by secondary school, which is where financial education is statutory, many of these habits are already formed. So primary age financial education is critical, really. And this is why, you know, the Lifesaver strategy focuses on ensuring financial education starts from a young age. So we use age appropriate resources suitable from early years and onwards. And, you know, with the younger children, we engage the younger children about the concepts of money through storytelling. We embed financial education in schools through our resources. They're all mapped to the curriculum, but we support teachers with training and resources as well, which I think is really important. You know, the programme is completely free of charge for schools to access, and the training we've designed, it's been designed to deliver maximum impact in such a short space of time, because we know teachers are time poor and we know they don't have the resources available to go out and purchase schemes of work to deliver this kind of thing in school. But we know financial education is being spoken about as well, not just by us, not just by GamCare, but there was a report in, I think it was 2021, so the all-party parliamentary group on financial education for young people, which Martin Lewis contributed to. And I'm sure many of your listeners will be familiar with the work that Martin Lewis does and all the wonderful campaigns he supports. But that kind of calls on the government to set a target to ensure every primary age school child gets a high quality, effective and sustainable financial education by the end of the decade. But financial education and gambling harm awareness, it goes hand in hand. If they haven't got an understanding of or the value of money, they're not going to be able to apply that in risky situations that they're put in through these online games that they're playing.
Thank you, Hayley, for that. Yeah, really important. I think the two things which really stood out for me is, first of all, this is relevant for children of all ages. Thinking about 3 and 4 year olds and thinking about sort of where they are in their development as children, as humans, and thinking about actually how they have access to a lot of risk in terms of financial risk, and actually ensuring that financial education is built from a very early age, and also the importance of stories as well. As Willingham says, 19 years ago, I think now, 2004, stories are psychologically privileged. So our minds treat stories differently than other types of material. And those of us like Brent and myself and Tom, who teach history, we know the importance of stories when we are teaching important parts of our curriculum. And so using stories really at any age when you're talking about financial education is really, really important too. So just to sum up there, Hayley, what would you hope that Lifesavers would achieve through their programme?
So the Lifesavers programme is already a very well established programme. So we already provide a high quality, effective and sustainable financial education. As I've already mentioned, it's free to primary schools across the UK, but it's constantly evolving with emerging trends. It responds to need, it's cross-curricular and it's easy to embed. So the programme, it's got a whole school approach. We've got age appropriate resources. But more importantly, we've got that qualitative and evidence-based data to support our programmes to show that it does actually work in schools. Now, we already work with an existing network of schools, and my colleagues that I work with, they're experts in the field. So the programme, it was created by primary practitioners and for primary practitioners. And to date, we've engaged with around 456 schools across the UK. That means over 122,000 children have already received a meaningful financial education as part of our programme. But really what we're trying to achieve through the resources is, within the programme, we explore all the things that we can do with our money: spend, save, give, lend, invest and borrow. But more importantly, what we do in relation to our core values. So we want children to develop a generous, wise, thankful and just attitude with our money. And, we discuss financial education within real life context to help them get a better understanding, so it can, shape the confidence that they have with the money that they can take through with them into their adult life. So if there are any listeners that would like to find out more about our programme or engage with our Lifesavers programme, please feel free to reach out and visit our website. It's www.justfinancefoundation.org.uk. But this really leads us on to the work that we've been doing with GamCare as well. So we have identified a number of gaps in our offering around risk and gambling harm awareness, and it's not something that we currently cover through our Lifesavers resources, but we have been supporting GamCare through our advocacy work to our networks of schools, and long will that continue. So in addition, we plan to kind of co-create a resource alongside GamCare, because they're the experts in the field, and it's going to be aimed at children in a younger age setting, so probably key stage 1, just to highlight the importance of gambling harm awareness in a simplified way that children will understand.
Sounds like a really important and significant impact there, Hayley. We've now got 20 minutes or so for Q&A. And so if you've got any questions about financial education, loot boxes, skin betting, lifesavers, or anything to do with Talk Money Week, then you can do two things if you're listening live. The first thing you can do is on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, there is a speech bubble. You can press the speech bubble and tweet us your question, and we will pin it to the top of the space. So Graham Gaines has said health and well-being is a major part of curriculum now, so financial education should feature as part of that. I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. And the second thing you can do on the bottom left-hand side of your screen is there is a request to speak icon as well. So if you want to ask Hayley and Craig your question, not by tweeting, but by speaking, then that bottom left-hand side of your screen is where you would call in to ask a question about financial education, about loot boxes, about skin betting, about lifesavers, about Talk Money Week. So if we kick this off, for our first question, we'll start with Craig and then go to Hayley. So our first question is, why should financial education, like learning about online gambling risks, be part of a statutory health education programme in primary and secondary schools? So Craig, if you want to start with that one. So why should financial education, like learning about online gambling risks, be part of the statutory health education curriculum in primary and secondary schools?
Yeah, sure thing. So as Hayley said, it's hugely important that children and young people receive this information at an early age. With gambling in particular, children can participate in gambling for a very early age in the forms of arcades, so the penny pushers, the claw machines. These are regulated forms of gambling. You know, they can't legally drink alcohol, use drugs, you know, they can't participate in other risky behaviours, but they get education on all of those topics. And gambling is often left to the bottom. So, you know, we know that from research into prevention that it needs to start from an early age, and the sooner we can introduce the concepts of risk, chance, odds, you know, talking about how the gambling industry makes money. You know, it's not a good way to make money. They're the ones that are reaping the benefits. You know, the more informed the young person can be, so when they are presented with these choices later in life, you know, they've got the information that they need to make the ones that suit them.
Knowledge is very important. Our curriculum changes in the last few years have prioritised knowledge, and so knowledge about financial education is really important. Hayley, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I suppose really, I mean, if you think about, you know, how did you learn about money? And if you think about what our children are exposed to now, what they see and what they don't see. So they no longer kind of see mum's purse full of notes and coins. And that was something I grew up with. You know, I know my mum did the budgeting. She'd go to the post office once a week, and the money in the purse was what she had available to spend. But children don't see that anymore. And it's not because of the cost of living crisis. You know, unfortunately, we are becoming an increasingly cashless society. Now, hopefully, we'll never become fully cashless. There are always going to be people that want to use cash for various reasons. And for me, having a currency kind of gives you a sense of identity. But then also, you know I keep drawing on my personal experiences, really. But one of my drivers for wanting to work with GamCare and gambling harm awareness is something I'm very passionate about, and why I wanted it to be integrated into our Lifesavers resources is in my adult life, I've seen firsthand the impact and devastation that gambling and gambling addiction can have. You know, it destroys lives and families, and it can be quite difficult to identify. So with alcohol and drugs, the addiction can be quite visible, you know, through a person's appearance or behaviour. And like Craig said, you know, people with gambling addiction, they can hide it, it can be masked. But, you know, there's not always the obvious signs. And I spoke to the person that had this terrible affliction recently, and they said one of the most difficult things that they were not able to grasp when they were in the grip of addiction, when they was playing these online games, be you know, roulette or online bingo, was it never felt like it was real money that they were playing with. And those were the words of an adult. And that's quite scary, really. If you think about, you've got 3-year-olds playing with digital dollars, and then you've got an adult doing something very similar, and they were unable to grasp the concept that virtual money was actually connected to real physical money. Obviously, you know, they knew about the impact afterwards, but I think that's why it's really important to be having these conversations in school and at home from a young age, because talking little and often is a great way to secure learning. And I think that's why it's important that financial education is perfectly married with gambling harm awareness, and it's just needed in school at a time now where the world is becoming, it's a virtual platform. Everything is done online. I'm very much guilty of being part of the click and collect nation, where one of your children asks for you something and then you pick up your phone, you click a button, and it magically arrives the next day, and they haven't seen that exchange of money. So how are they going to understand the value of it? If you can imagine being a 5-year-old in the supermarket and mum's gone to the till, she's paid for a shopping through the self-service, and then she taps a card and she gets some cash back, and this money magically spits out of the machine, and they go away with it. It's what's going through that child's mind. So if you can talk to children about money, whether it be digital or physical cash, so they really appreciate the value of where it comes from, how we can look after it, how it helps other people, and with the risk as well. I think it's really going to support them as they go on into their adult lives.
Fantastic, thank you, Hayley. And yeah, that idea about needing to talk. If you do one thing this week, TTI listeners, then do talk about money. Our next question, sort of a follow-up really, and again we'll start with Craig on this one. So when we talk about financial education being part of statutory education, how are the two of you working together to help achieve this?
Just Finance Foundation proudly sponsors Teachers Talk Radio for Talk Money Week. Join us from Saturday the 4th of November for a week of incredible guests and thought-provoking discussions on how teachers can talk about money in the classroom. Tune in, be inspired, and empower the future generation. Teachers Talk Radio, sponsored by Just Finance Foundation, helping children manage money wisely. Visit our website for the schedule and details, justfinancefoundation.org.uk.
Yeah, so we've got quite a large delivery team, some fabulous people out there. So we've got 20 education and training leads that cover everywhere from Northern Ireland through England and Wales. But we can't reach every corner of that without enlisting the support and partnering with other organisations that do similar work to us. And, if we want to go into like our program at the moment for age 11 to 19, so we do a bit of Key Stage 2, but if we want to move into Key Stage 1, we need to talk to the experts who are already in that field. And this opens doors, this develops better resources, and it creates new opportunities for us to promote each other's work and ensure our programs get the widest possible coverage.
Brilliant, thank you, Craig. And Hayley, how are you working together to help achieve this?
Yeah, again, echoing kind of what Craig said. I mean, they're the experts in their field. And as I've already mentioned, we've identified gaps in what we're trying to achieve through our programme. So working with the experts to help us shape and develop our resources to make sure that we're reaching those younger children and giving them an awareness of kind of gambling harm and the risks. That's really, the ultimate outcome. Craig's already said they work with large numbers of secondary schools, whereas our audience is predominantly primary. But we know the younger children are being impacted by this risk and kind of through these online game platforms and things like that. So supporting each other, we've been great advocates of each other's work, signposting when we're talking to networks of schools and things like that. I can talk passionately about the work that GamCare do.
Fantastic, thank you, and it's great to hear that you're working together on this. Now, Noreen has come in as a speaker. Now, Noreen, if it's okay with you, I'm going to hold on for your question for another 5 minutes, if that's okay, because we've got another question. It's sort of linked to what Brent has said, which is how can financial education and gambling awareness be weaved into the existing curriculum? And Brent's question was, is financial education still in the maths curriculum as a subject? They have the time to educate on this, along with learning about money. Too often this is an afterthought in PSHE. My understanding is that financial education is a part of a maths curriculum. Hayley, can you shed any light on that, and also how it can be weaved into the existing curriculum elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, our resources are very much cross-curricular in the approach to learning about money, and they've been designed purposely like that, because we know, teachers' timetables are absolutely overrun, and they've got so much that they've got to deliver in the classroom as part of the curriculum. So we didn't want it to be a burden, something additional that they had to do. So if you do, for example, one of our Lifesavers lessons, it's very much cross-curricular. So there's links to English, there's links to PSHE, there's strong links to maths, obviously, which they're very much evident. But we've even got links to science, art and design, D&T. We want to open up the topics for discussion to have. We want parents, children, teachers to have that open dialogue with the children in the classroom, to have those discussions and the debates and things like that. So our approach to learning about money, as I've already mentioned, it's very cross-curricular in its approach. So that's how it can be easily weaved through the curriculum in primary schools.
Thank you for that, Hayley. I've just been on a little bit of digging for you, Brent. My new understanding is that in England, which is where you teach just down the road from me, financial education is statutory national curriculum only in secondary schools as part of citizenship and maths. And this is what the details I've got in front of me, Brent, are the following. It says people should be taught about the functions and uses of money, budgeting, managing risk, credit and debt, insurance, savings and pensions, financial service, and applying maths to financial contexts, such as calculating interest. While specific financial education is not a requirement in primary schools, the maths curriculum does include some learning about money, such as understanding pounds and pence, using coins, and calculating change. And then all schools are expected to deliver PSHE, including some financial education, using guidance provided by the PSHE Association. So, Brent, I hope that answers your question. Just because it's not statutory in primary school, it certainly doesn't mean we should avoid it. And if we've learned anything from the last half an hour, it's that these conversations are just as important, if not more important, for young people and children at Key Stage 2, Key Stage 1, and the early years. If we go to Craig then, anything you want to add about how financial education and gambling awareness can be weaved into the existing curriculum?
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, education around gambling themes appears in the programme of study for PSHE education. So it's in Key Stage 2 under Economic Wellbeing and Money. It's in Key Stage 3 under Managing Risk and Personal Safety. And Key Stage 4 also under Economic Wellbeing and Money, but also Financial Choices. So it's really good for us to see that there. Gambling's also appeared for the first time in September 2021 in the Relationships and Sex Education Guidance, so under Physical Health and Mental Wellbeing for secondary school students. The Internet Safety and Harm section states that pupils should know the risks related to online gambling, including the accumulation of debt and how advertising and information are targeted at them. And then we also see it in the statutory guidance for schools and colleges for keeping students safe in education, which was updated in September 2022, I believe. So under the commerce section there, that includes making students aware of the risks such as online gambling, inappropriate advertising, phishing, and financial scams. So this gives us a lot more relevance in schools now, and we certainly have noticed in the past year or so that there's more interest from schools in covering these topics, but we know that there's still a lot more work to do.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've got the foundations in place, we've got a lot of opportunities, but yes, still more work to do, which I think is very important. Paul has said, from a primary point of view, time and money are usually the worst two units to teach, and the ones that many people struggle with. Not entirely sure why a pence or pound sign throws them so much. Is it worse than Roman numerals, Paul? That's a question I've got to ask you as a primary teacher, because I hear all sorts of wonderful things about primary teachers teaching Roman numerals. But what we will do after we hear from Hayley and Craig on our last scheduled question, we might delve into that a little bit, Paul, if you want to call in. So we can't do anything really in schools as well as we possibly can without the support of senior leaders, because senior leaders are the ones who set the strategy, they run the operations, and if you've got the support of a senior leader, then the chances of implementing something are 100 times more likely to succeed. So how can senior leaders in schools support financial education like this? If we start with Hayley and then go to Craig on that one. So how can senior leaders in schools support financial education?
Yeah, I think they just got to see the value of delivering financial education in school. And for us, talking about my experience, it's a teacher can read anything you can send out, an email, there can be an advert in a local newspaper, there can be an ad on Facebook or social media. But when we actually get the opportunity to sit down in front of somebody from a senior leadership team and tell them about our programme and show them the resources, it's only then that we kind of, we're 99% guaranteed to get that person signed up on board. It's just giving them awareness and appreciation of how our resources can be integrated into their school curriculum, so it's not something additional that they have to do. We've mapped all of our resources to the curriculum so they don't have to kind of go away and reinvent the wheel. And through our training, it's very light touch, but we give them ideas and inspiration of what financial education might look like in their school. We explore what they're doing already, so where they might hook our resources in again, so it's not something additional that they have to do. I think SLT, if they can get on board, if they can make financial education as part of the school improvement plan, we find that's a real tick for Ofsted as well. But I think it's just a really valuable and important life skill that children need to have. Just thinking about, again, my own personal life experiences and the issues I've had with one of my children around, online gaming and things like that. I'm not the only parent or person that I've said these. These are things that are coming out of all the teachers that I speak to. And it just really highlights the need from financial education, starting from a young age, but having the discussions around gambling harm awareness as well.
Fantastic. And I don't do things for Ofsted, I do things for children. And if that's the mindset we have, then having financial education in our schools is a must. Craig, how else can senior leaders in school support financial education, like what we've talked about this morning?
I think it's important to acknowledge the pressure schools are under in this current climate. We know, with limited resources, struggles with recruitment, increasing pressure to deliver more and more diverse topics. We understand it can be difficult, and that's where we come in. So what I would say is for senior leaders to utilise the expertise that we at GamCare and JFF possess to their advantage. Our programme is fully funded, so there's no cost involved to the school. We can provide a passionate and dedicated person with expertise to come into your school and deliver these sessions for you. Our team are brilliant at engaging the class and providing an interactive and safe space for students to discuss these important issues. We've got experience delivering to over 100,000 young people now as part of this programme. And our youth work at GamCare has an advanced accreditation from the National Youth Agency. So we are proven in this area. And, we were a bit delighted to come and deliver these gambling awareness sessions in your schools and also train your staff, speak to your parents. If anyone is interested that's listening, they can contact hello@bigdeal.org.uk. Big Deal is our youth-facing website, which is a really useful resource, and it has advice for parents and professionals there as well. And I just want to add as well, on the end of that, we know some people listening may be struggling with these issues. So if you are, GamCare's here to help. We run the National Gambling Helpline, which is available 24/7, and you can contact that on 0808 8020 133. So I really would encourage you, if you are struggling, to reach out and have a chat with someone.
Really important point there. Thank you, Craig. Now, Noreen, you've been really, really patient. What would you like to add to today's discussion?
Thank you, Tom. Craig sort of answered my question. I was just going to ask that if a teacher is delivering a lesson on gambling, or if a student goes home and talks about what they've done at school that day, and one of the parents has a problem with gambling, how can we support that parent or that teacher?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question about supporting all people, particularly in the post-pandemic society we live in, and with particular cost of living pressures that have arisen in the last year and a bit as well. I think it's really important from my perspective here is a teacher here is to say that these issues are safeguarding issues and should be treated like any other safeguarding issue, where it involves financial struggles and pressures, and a child is talking to a teacher or to another child about this. And as ever with any safeguarding issue, the advice is never do nothing. If it gives you a worry, no matter how small you may think it may be part of the jigsaw that your safeguarding leads and your pastoral team are missing. So it may help to explain other behaviours that a child exhibits in the classroom as well. So I think that's a really important point and a really important question you've raised there, Maureen.
Yeah, I was thinking more of from the teacher's point of view. If a teacher has a gambling problem and has not obviously told their colleagues about it, and then is expected to and is then asked to deliver a lesson on that teacher may find it hard. I'm just wondering how would obviously SLT can't go around asking everybody, do you have a gambling problem or not, before asking them before the curriculum is designed. But how do we get around this?
I think if it's raised to a colleague about another colleague, then again follow your school's procedures on that. Anything from Hayley or Craig that they can add on that about teachers who may be asked to deliver aspects of financial education but may be struggling with issues themselves.
Yeah, really good point there. So I just wanted to highlight we've got a support service specifically for young people and their parents, and any professional can get in touch with them or parent. We work with parents as what we call affected others, so affected by someone else's gambling or gaming. But in terms of a teacher, I mean, I guess it's a difficult one, and that's why gambling's, we call it the hidden addiction, right? Like likely that teacher's colleagues would never have known that teacher had an issue, and now that teacher's presented with having to deliver a session on gambling. As I say, like our program, like we would come and deliver that session for them, but for that teacher, I guess once you find out, it's about signposting and supporting that person to get the support that they need. They can contact the National Gambling Helpline, as I mentioned. They can refer themselves in if they're ready for treatment. We can deliver that as well, but it depends on the severity of it as well. But I would encourage them to talk about it and find out what's going on for that person.
Yeah, I think many teachers, I mean, a lot of people who have gambling addictions are often in denial about it, and it might be only up until the point where they start delivering a session around gambling that kind of light bulb moment comes on and they realise that they have actually got an issue. So I think, as Craig said, there's lots of signposts and things going on for your programs and resources, which is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I think a lot of gamblers are in denial about the issues that they have.
I think that's very similar to a lot of addictions as well, and I think particularly a lot of issues around addiction in general have been raised in the last couple of weeks at a sort of celebrity level, and I think it's really important that we have those open, safe spaces for anybody to discuss particular issues as well, not just for students but also for adults as well. Noreen, anything else you wanted to ask or add?
No, fine, thank you. Finding this really useful, actually. Thank you, Hayley and
Thank
Craig.
you. Well, do please share the podcast with your networks as well once we publish it later. Paul has added, I think the growing difficulty is that children have less and less opportunity to use money out of school. After COVID, how many people carry cash, even carry change? We're on the cusp of a fully electronic system, meaning that money lessons as we know it would change. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I think it links a lot to what we've already discussed about when sort of parents go and do their weekly shop and they pay with their contactless card and then they get some cash back and the money comes out, and what's going through a child's mind when they're watching that, and also the things we've discussed from very start about loot boxes and this idea that actually young people don't understand the value of money because these transactions or micro transactions, which are often not micro, they don't feel really like real money. Hayley, Craig, anything you want to add there in response to Paul's question?
No, I think through our financial education program that we provide, we explore money through real life context. So we do talk about, online banking and things like that. So whether a child is using physical money or digital money, we want them to have an understanding of awareness of the impacts that it can have with the risky behaviours and things like that. And I'm just thinking back to a conversation that I had with a teacher a short while ago. And he was telling me about his first memory of money. And I kind of know going off subject here a little bit, but he said he always remembers going to the bank once a week with his mum to draw the money out, which is where, so she had the money for shopping and to pay the bills and so forth and so forth. And he said this went on for a number of weeks. And he said, I said to my brother, I think we're going to run out of money. And he said, well, why? He said, because my mum's always taking money out of the bank, but she's never putting it in. And they went on a scavenger hunt looking for threepenny bits to give to the mum so she could pay it into the bank. Now, obviously, he didn't know that they had salaries and things like that being paid into the bank account. But he's kind of having that conversation in reverse with our children. So I know I very much had this happen to me myself. You'd be in the supermarket, one of your children wants something, and you say, no, you can't have it this week. I haven't got enough money. And they say, just put it on your card. They just think cards have got this magical endless supply of money attached to it. So, through the Lifesavers program, they're the kind of things that we explore and that we want the children to have a good understanding of.
Thank you. And hopefully, Paul, that's helped you there. Craig, anything you wanted to add in response to Paul?
Yeah, just from a gambling perspective, I mean, the last Gambling Act was 2005. The first smartphone came out in 2007. So thankfully, there is a review going on at the moment, and hopefully we'll get some legislation that matches the digital world. But, when we're talking to young people, we acknowledge that, we need to know what activities they're participating in. There's no point in us talking about going into a bookmaker's if they are doing most of their gambling online. And we're really lucky to have a youth advisory board at GamCare, which has been running for about 18 months, 2 years now. And it's attached to the Duke of Edinburgh scheme. So we've got a group of young people who we can run things past, and we've got a finger on the pulse, I guess, so that we can make sure what we're telling people in schools is really current and relevant.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Craig. So that brings an end to our conversation with Hayley and Craig. If you do have any more questions, please do add them in. If you're listening live, then that speech bubble in the bottom right-hand corner will allow you to tweet us your questions. Or if you want to speak, then you can press the request button in the bottom left-hand side of your screen as well. If you're listening back to this as a podcast on demand, then first of all, do check out all of our other shows, ttradio.org/listen back. But also, if you do have a question based on anything that's been raised, then do tweet us at TT Radio Official, and you can tweet the Just Finance Foundation as well at Just Finance FDN. So let's sort of reflect on what we've discussed today. We've been talking about loot boxes, and we've been talking about skin betting and the importance of raising awareness of the impact and concerns of online gambling. And you may not have known what loot boxes and skin betting were before today, and if you did have some understanding of them, you may not necessarily have thought as a teacher of them when gambling came to your mind. I think a lot of teachers, when they think of gambling, think about betting and think about sort of over 18 bookmakers and other things as well. So loot boxes and skin betting don't really come to mind, and they do have a really big impact. We know that they're popularized by some very popular video games and by content creators and YouTubers who are often paid by by organisations and games creators, it's not actually their money, but they're giving the impression that it is. And that's what young people are seeing, and that's what young people are being influenced by. And it doesn't just affect children who are in secondary school, primary school children, Key Stage 1 and even the early years can be affected as well. And so it's really important that, what we've discussed today through Lifesavers and through GamCare as well, is providing age-appropriate resources to these young people. And one really important and good way we can do that is through stories. It's really important to use stories whenever we're teaching anything, but particularly hard-hitting issues like financial education, because they are psychologically privileged, because they are easier to remember, particularly for younger people, and presenting new knowledge and new information in the form of a story is really important. And we talked about some of the particular issues with building financial education foundations, thinking about what's sort of missing in that mental model of financial education for young people. And the key thing is that for a lot of young people, as Paul said, and as our guests Hayley and Craig have made it clear as well, for a lot of young people, transactions, particularly on online games, it doesn't feel like real money. And the click and collect culture we have nowadays, and contactless and paying on your mobile phone, it does lead to young people not always understanding the true value of money. And that's why we need to talk not just about physical cash, as historically we have, but about digital spending as well. And that's why these fully funded programs with their expert delivery are so important. And it's important that we give that safe space for students to discuss these issues. And we've got to involve all stakeholders. Senior leaders need to be the impetus behind delivering change in our schools and raising the issues and making time and space for these in the curriculum, not just bolting it on but slotting it in. We need to ensure that teachers are trained and well equipped to answer any questions that our young people have. We need to ensure that we communicate with parents and provide the signposts for those who may need it. And it's also, of course, very important that students learn about these things as well. So we've kickstarted Talk Money Week. If you missed the start of the show, this week is an opportunity for everyone to get involved with events and activities across the UK which help people have more open conversations about their money, from pocket money to pensions, and also to continue these conversations all year round. So next week, whether you're going back to work after half term, it's the second week back, then please do use this week as an opportunity to talk about any aspect of money. And this year's theme for Talk Money Week is do one thing. So I'm asking you, our Teachers Talk Radio listeners, to do one thing that could help improve your financial well-being, to make a noise about it and to inspire other people to do the same. It could be as simple as checking the address on your pension. It could be as simple as talking to the students in front of you, or your child if you're a parent or a guardian, about pocket money. All that matters really is that we get people talking about money together. So it's a big thank you to Hayley and to Craig. We've got 3 more shows coming up this week for Talk Money Week. We have a show, Innovation in Financial Education, providing support for teachers. That's on Monday at 7:30 p.m, hosted by Hannah Wilson. On Wednesday, we have at 7:30 a show hosted by Tom Rogers about credit unions. What is the difference? So thinking about financial education through credit unions. And then finally on Thursday at 7:30 as well, we have another show with Hannah Wilson, all about is financial education equal, and adapting financial education for AP and SEMH learners. So yeah, Just Finance Foundation has taken over Teachers Talk Radio for a week, and this is show 1 of 4. You can listen back to all of our shows on our website, ttradio.org/listen back. If you'd like to host, drop us a DM at TT Radio Official, or drop us an email at info@ttradio.org. Thank you, Hayley. Thank you, Craig.
No, thank you for the
Thanks, Tom.
opportunity to allow us to raise awareness of the school programmes that we're doing through the Lifesavers and through GamCare. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, absolutely brilliant. And we'll leave you with Noreen's takeaway, which is talk to your children about money. It doesn't come from cards or holes in the walls. Talk to children about dangers of gambling. If you are affected, then there are plenty of places you can go to. So without further ado, that is the end of today's show. Thank you to Hayley and to Craig, and we'll see you soon on Teachers Talk Radio.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.